30 is a good number. 30 is a good number, but people have done in the 20, 22.
Yeah, they say the standard for empirical is 30.
30, yeah.
You need 30.
I think that's a good number to aim
30.
for. So, you know, so you have to think about what's possible for you, and then you explain that, by the way, in chapter 3. You say, you know, this was the strength of using this. You have to explain every choice you make. That's what you write in this chapter. In chapter 3, every single choice that you made for collecting data and for analyzing data must be justified in this chapter. Why did you choose to do interviews? What are the strengths of interviews? Why did you choose to do case study? Why did you choose single case study? Why did you choose multiple case study? Why did you choose archival work? You have to justify all of your decisions. So you say this method was the most appropriate for logically answering this study's research questions. And then you explain why. Archival work in here, you will explain how you gained access to the archives, whether you needed permission from certain authorities. You will talk about how you recruited people to interview. So all of that has to be explained, right? Did you do snowball sampling? Did you, you know, did you specifically choose the people you want to interview, or were they just randomly selected? All of that has to be explained.
Are they in a certain geographical, economical neighborhood, or were they in a?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah.
And
okay.
how does that influence your findings?
Right.
Right? Because that matters. And why did you choose these people, and why did you not choose other people? Everything has to be explained. Okay, so you know, as far as citation goes, so APA is the common citation style for the social sciences. Chicago is common for history, and MLA is for the humanities. Now, for the business school, since it's unclear what is the standard citation style, you use the citation style of the leading journals in your field, in your topic. So whatever it is you're writing about, see what other people have written and published in the leading journals, and the citation style that they use, you just follow that one.
So you would say, like in musicology, MLA would be the best?
So it would either be, so actually it could be either one of those. I'm actually unsure. Does your topic have a history component?
It has a history component, it has a sociological component, and it also has a musical component.
That would be a question for your chair. Just
okay.
Ask your chair, which one should I use? And you know, ask at the beginning. Ask now.
Right.
Because as you start to, so here's the thing, the bibliography, oh, I'm so happy you asked that question. Start putting your bibliography together now. Every time you come across an article, you don't have to make it perfect, right? Put the last name, open up a document, make a document for yourself, and put bibliography. And every time you come across an article that might be interesting or that you've read, add it to this Word document. Start compiling it now, because once you really get going into this thing, you will have so many sources, and it will be overwhelming to go. And some of them you may lose. You may have read this wonderful article that's so important to what you're writing about, but you lost it, or you had to return the book, and now you can't find it because you can't remember the person's name. So start that immediately, right? And just put it in there in a rudimentary form. Last name, first name, you know, title, date of publication. And you can polish it later on, or when you have free time, or when you're procrastinating and you don't want to write your chapters, you can polish your bibliography.
One of my professors gave us a name of a site. Well, this has to do with music, though.
Okay.
That you send them the topic that you were writing on,
Yeah.
and they will send you a bibliography.
Wow.
And there's so many books on the bibliography that you go crazy.
Right.
You go crazy trying to figure out which ones to read.
Yeah, you have to read. Yeah. So read summaries and read abstracts.
Yeah.
Because it's, I mean, you do not have the time to read all of those.
Well, one of the professors I have now, sometimes he gives us 3 books to read in 1 week. And he said to us, you know, learn how to skim and get what you need out of it.
Right.
Don't try to read every word.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, read the introduction, read the findings,
Yeah.
and read the methodology. Yeah, that's true. So start your bibliography right now. And it will help you enormously. It will save you so much time and so much work later on. Okay, so field work, we have time. So this, this slide alone could be its own PowerPoint presentation. If you're going to do field work and you're going to work with people, so human participants, you're going to interview people, or you're going to do focus groups, or you're going to give people surveys, right? Anything that has to do with people, you have to go through the IRB. And what is the purpose of the IRB? The IRB is the Institutional Review Board. The IRB came into existence to make sure that we are doing ethical research, that we are not harming or doing anything that will directly or even indirectly harm the participants of our study. It's also to protect us as researchers, right? So it's to protect the participants, and it's to protect the principal investigator, that's you.
Where's the history of this come from? It sounds like there's some various actions that's going on.
Yeah, well, a while ago, like, people did some unethical stuff, and it had to do more with like collecting like samples from people, so more for like the hard science, like collecting blood samples or running those types of experiments on people, and they weren't made fully aware of what's being done.
You're talking about Tuskegee?
Yeah, that's an extreme
one.
example, right? But it happens even with oral histories. It happens with everything. So for example, now the IRB used to history didn't have to do it, but now with oral histories, so you have a person, and let's say they're talking about a genocide, right? They're a survivor of a genocide, and now you are trying to get the oral history. So this person is sitting there and talking about the trauma that they went through, and then they're reliving the trauma, and they have a breakdown. Or this is affecting the person's health. You cannot push forward with the research. You can't say, okay, get it together.
Yeah, let's go
I
back.
need to get these responses from you, right? That's very unethical. And so the IRB is there to make sure that you're not doing this. And the IRB is no joke. I really think this thing is a rite of passage. The application is quite long. My IRB application was something like 80 pages. You have to provide all sorts of things to them. And you have to convince them that you are going to ensure confidentiality and ensure the safety of the participants.
So they're there, IRB, they're there physically during the interview processes.
No, they're not there.
So when are they ever physically there?
They're not.
So you're just making filling out a form that details what you're doing, what you plan to do, and then they give you approval.
Yeah, and so you have to provide, so on the consent form, so everyone will have to get a consent form, they have to sign it and date it. The consent form must have the contact information for the IRB, and must have your contact information, and must have the contact information of your chair, so that if they want to file a complaint, or if
The subject,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
Once they file a complaint, they have a
Or
mutual party to contact.
They can contact
Okay, all
you,
right.
they can contact your chair, your university, and the IRB. So it's all about transparency there.
What year did this come into effect?
The IRB, I think, has been around since the 50s.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think, I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure. It's been around for a
A
while.
lot of Frankenstein stuff is going on.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, there was.
So this is the point of the IRB. Okay. So for field work, where are you doing your field work? I know you may do field work.
No, let me tell you what the situation is.
Mhm.
I'm a neophyte to a lot of the things that's going on, but I'm wise enough to say, to know that I'm gonna be there.
Mhm.
Let me get this now if the opportunity is open, that it's free.
Right.
Hence my reason for coming to this class, to learn all about this, so that when my opportunity comes, I know what's going on already. I'm not blind to it, like, and I have to learn all this. I'm learning it now. I have nothing really to do, so why not come and learn?
Mhm. Okay, and where will you be collecting, where is your population for your sample?
I will, for the first step, for interview,
Yeah,
I will interview the MBA students, other professionals or managers. And for survey, I will collect data from managers with about 3 to 5 followers.
Yeah.
And also collect data from their followers.
you said MBA students here at Rutgers?
Oh no, I will collect data in China because I
Okay.
don't have sources here.
Okay, Okay.
You don't have contacts here?
Yeah, I don't have contacts here because maybe there will be, for the survey, it's about 30 to 50, 30, yeah, 20 to 30 people, but for the, the interview will include about 20 to 30, but for survey, it will be maybe 200 managers. So I don't have such
Yeah.
kind of sources in companies here.
are you emailing the survey?
Emailing is one method, but I will also separate some hard copy of service to the HR,
Okay.
and HR will help me to deliver this service to the managers.
Yeah, so all of this you will detail in your theory and methodology.
Yes.
All of that.
Oh,
You know, I gave it to
Every steps,
every
every
single
single
step.
details.
Every single detail. I made copies, I gave it to HR at these 3 companies, they distributed them to
Mhm.
these people, you know, and you have to explain like are they anonymous? They don't need to put their names.
Yes, they don't need to.
Okay, so you'll have to like think through, and how will you get consent? Will they have to sign consent forms or give
Yes,
oral
yes,
consent?
exactly. The consent form will be in the front of the survey.
Okay. Okay.
You mean because they will sign the consent, so they will leave their name?
Well, right, because they would sign with their name, so you just want to think about how you'll maintain confidentiality, because remember, there's another person now that's going to have access to their
Yes.
responses, which is the HR person.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that you think about it so that IRB doesn't come at you later and then say like there was a breach of confidentiality. Because this person is going to, and you know, this person will see the employee's name, and what if this person starts reading these responses? And if the responses are not favorable,
Mm-hmm.
could that harm the employee,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
right? Could that put the employee's position in jeopardy?
Mm-hmm.
So you know, you want to think about those things.
Yes.
Because that's a potential issue. Okay, so establishing a contact in the target area, you know, you can reach out to NGOs, you can reach out to schools and academics that are working in the area. Or you can talk to people if you know someone in your program who has done research in that region or in that company. You're going to speak to that person. So there are many different ways to get contact. Important factors to consider: funding, language, culture, climate, you know, terrain, safety, personal relationships, and children. So, you know, you're doing this study, but these are all, you know, this is all a part of reality. So funding is the main one. Like if you have to go abroad to do research, do you have the money to do so? Or if you have to go abroad for an archive, right? So my chair did field work in Mexico, and she works in archives, right? So she spent a year there working in the archives, right? So think about funding, think about language. Do you speak the language, or do you speak the dialect, right? So she had to speak Spanish, right? You have to think about, so if you're going to do research in a particular region and you don't speak the language, are you going to have a translator? If you have a translator, that's fine. The translator is going to need approval from the IRB. You're going to have to put that, because now that person has access, right, to confidential information. You have to think about cultural sensitivities. So where do you position yourself as a researcher? And typically Western researchers, we go into the field, and it depends on the topic too, but if you're studying like a vulnerable population, if you're studying people in prison, if you're studying poor people, vulnerable in any way, where are you positioning yourself here and the participants are here? This may hurt your chances of them speaking to you. Are you positioning yourself like this? Is it like this? This is all things that you have to think about when you're working with people and how they will respond to you. So cultural sensitivities, even things like how you dress. So if you're going to interview, a CEO of a company, you're not going to wear a t-shirt and ripped jeans, right? Because that person will not respond to you well, right? So you're going to wear something a little bit more formal. But if you're going to speak to an indigenous family, right, in northern Peru, you're not going to wear a suit, right? So you have to think about, who you're going to speak to and these sort of sensitivities.
Seersucker and straw hat. Seersucker and straw hat.
To mirror what they're wearing.
No,
Yeah.
that's just
You said
so with
something,
the weather.
you said something about, you hinted to European. Is there a difference in technique from the European perspective?
Oh, Western?
Perspective, yeah,
Yeah.
than the Western.
Well, I think, just because you are, you're doing your research at a Western institution, so just being a Western researcher, thinking about, and this, feminist theory forces you to think about, encourages you, and it's so useful. Where do you position, what is the dynamic between the researcher and the participant? Is it hierarchical? So it's important to think about that. Do you place yourself above the participant because you are the holder of the knowledge, or you are the Western researcher? And when we're not aware of these things, these are biases that are built into us, so we're not conscious of it. But what's so great about feminist theory, and I don't use this particular paradigm, but it's so wonderful because it calls your attention to that. Because it does influence your research, being aware of where you position yourself as a researcher. Also, as a Western researcher, many people will be suspicious of you, right? That's just because, especially if you're from this country. So if you're studying sensitive issues like development or poverty or war or things like that, you have to think about the United States and its history. And, there are many people that see this, country as imperialistic, and they're just not happy, and so you're going into the field with all of this, right? Other people's perceptions of you. So you have to understand how you perceive yourself, and then how other people may perceive you, and how do you want to navigate that? Because when I did, so I did my own research in a very poor area in northern Peru, and there were people that did not want to speak to me because they don't trust me because I'm from this country. And the gold mining company that is exploiting their natural resources is an American company. So they associate me with the company. So they think that I work for the company, that I'm a spy for the company. So they wouldn't speak to me. So, things like that. So it's okay, how do I navigate this? How do I explain to them that I'm not, that my research is for them, and all these kinds of things come up.
Yeah, you didn't go down there wearing a lot of gold, So.
No, not at all. Not at all. But, they hear it in your accent. So I was, I'm quite, not fluent, but I'm quite conversational in Spanish, but I don't have that accent, and so they were able to, peg me as a foreigner. That's okay, I wasn't trying to hide it. I was actually quite transparent about my purpose for being there, and they don't trust you. And so you move on, right? You can't force anybody.
Who did you find trust you, the younger generation or the older generation?
The older generation.
They trust you?
They didn't.
Oh, they didn't, okay.
Yeah. So, and then thinking about personal and children, right? There are many people that have children and are doing PhD. So if you have a particular, this is where you go back to your research question. You have your research question. You need to collect data to answer that question. If you have children, let's say you need to collect data in China, can you pick up and go to China? Some people who have young children may be able to do it, some people will not be able to do it. So it's all about, you gotta really think about your own life and being realistic. Mm-hmm.
Question, I contacted someone about interviewing them. They're an expert in the area where I'm writing the dissertation.
Okay.
And they're also good friends with my brother.
Okay.
My older brother. And I asked him if I could interview him,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted me to pay him. Now, how do you get the money for things like that?
Funding.
Yeah, so
gotta get
that's, you can ask for, so if you're gonna pay your participants, give them some monetary compensation, it either has to come through funding or you pay out of pocket.
Yeah, that's.
It's how much you want that interview.
Man, I might be able to do without it.
Yeah.
Because I also have to travel to Washington to interview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this
That's
guy
rare.
is really good because he, for his PhD, he transcribed 600 John Coltrane solos. And I wanted to know something
Wow.
about the music that he was playing, but I guess I'm gonna have to do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot of
oh
data.
yeah, yeah, he's a genius.
Yeah,
But
yeah, so you'd either have to, pay it out of pocket or try to get funding for it.
yeah, I might be able to.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe I think it's good to talk with the dean of your department
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
ask about whether we can get some funding for this project.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, also the Jazz Study Institute gives out research grants to a number of students every year.
Yeah,
So
apply for
maybe
that,
I can
for
get that
sure.
next year.
Absolutely, and it's great because you already know what you want to use it for specifically.
Yeah.
So in your
Well, that's
application.
part of it,
Yeah. And I think you're more, I mean, I don't know, but I think if you are more, you're very clear about your goals and what you want to use it for, they're more likely to award you the money than just saying, well, I need this money. You have a specific
Yeah,
purpose for it.
I know specifically what I want to use.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any questions about fieldwork? Yeah,
One more question.
right, because they're just writing their responses.
You need help with writing the survey questions, so, because you gotta get a psychologist or something
Mm-hmm,
to
yeah.
help you.
Create those, yeah, even have you created your interview questions?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You can let the person know that, and you reiterate this, so first of all, an interviewee, a participant can pull out of the study at any time,
Yes, sure.
even after
Yes.
they've given their interview, they can call and say, I no longer want to be a part of this, please, and you destroy their responses. But what you can do is that at the beginning of the interview, before you start, you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
let the person know, I'm not judging you on your response, just please, answer as truthfully as you can. You can say something sort of encouraging to kind of alleviate their fear about speaking truthfully. So you think about what you can say. But I mean, that's something to consider, because when it comes to, morality and ethics, people will change what it is they think, because they don't want to be judged negatively.
The interviewee is the respondent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, okay, so we sort of went over this, so, data collection and analysis. So here are some common methods for qualitative data. So you have interviews, you have focus groups, participant observation. Also in this should be archival work. Quantitative data, surveys, well, it depends actually what you do with the surveys. So some people will then, quantify the survey's findings, and some people won't, actually. So this is actually a little bit of a mistake. So surveys can be under both. And then numbers and statistics, right? So you're running regressions. So a survey that's quantifiable, you give a survey and you ask people to rate on a scale of like 1 to 5 their feeling about something, their opinion about something. And then you have numbered, right? So it's been quantified. Qualitative survey would be open-ended responses. So you ask a question and you have them write the response. So that can be both. And qualitative versus quantitative, so depth versus breadth, right? So if you do qualitative work, if you're interviewing people in person, you get so much rich, in-depth data, because you will sit with a person for an hour talking to them, right? So you get a lot of good feedback, but you don't have time to do that with 1,000 people. So these are two data analysis methods. So conventional content analysis is a sort of the analysis for like qualitative data. So when you do interviews, the responses you get. So you can do open coding, you can do conventional content analysis. There are software programs that allow you to do that. So a common one is NVivo, right? NVivo R, some people use R, NVivo is popular. And you can get NVivo from the university.
Can you spell that, please?
Yep, NVivo.
And what is it now? Yeah.
It's for, you can do many things with it, but it's for qualitative analysis. So if you do interviews, you have like written responses. You can, you will transcribe your interviews, and then you will upload them into NVivo. And then what NVivo helps you do is, so you will create codes, right? And NVivo will go through your transcriptions, and you can look at themes and trends and like phrases or words that like appear frequently. And you can start like, this is how you can start analyzing the data.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing this with IBM mainframes, and we had the little punch cards.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what was the program that we used. I think it was called Focus, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I think
that
that's
sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, I think they still use Focus,
Uh-huh.
but they've updated it a whole lot. It's
Yeah.
just that I don't know what version they're on yet.
Yeah. These software, like NVivo can produce like charts for you and, things like that. So it's very useful. But if you're going to do
RPG, we used to do that with RPG, report generating.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think they still use that now.
Yeah, that sounds familiar too.
Yeah, they still use that.
Mm-hmm. And then, there's for like Stata, right? Stata is a popular one for quantitative analyses. And this is when you're going to run regressions and things like that. So, okay. Any questions about that? We can talk about more specifics, but you ask me if you want to. It's okay if you don't.
If the focus group only used in qualitative data collection, or we can also use these words in quantitative data collection?
I think you can.
It could be either, but mostly it's qualitative.
It's mostly qualitative, because a focus group is like a group of you and a group of people sitting together in a circle or in a semicircle, and you're talking about a topic, and you are observing how these people talk about a particular topic, and you look at things like body language. There's a whole literature on how to run an effective focus group. So it's mostly qualitative, and you either are taking notes by hand, or if people agree to it, you can video record it.
Mm.
So it's it's like an in-person interview, except you're observing like a group dynamic. So it really is qualitative. Okay, so conferences and presentations. These are very helpful, mainly because, for two main reasons. One is that you get feedback, and you need that feedback. You always need people's feedback. And the second thing is that you become comfortable sharing your work, right? Publicly sharing your work. So there are many conferences, and there are many ways to present. There are each field has its like big conferences, but then there are smaller ones as well. So, a good idea would be to start with the smaller ones, right? Start presenting at these smaller panels at smaller conferences, and then you can work your way up to the large ones. And there are also panels for people who are earlier in the PhD process, by the way. So like you can think about that, so you can start, and they're called junior panels. All that means is that for people that are not at the later stages. And so you can like write something, you have to write a paper, and then you can start presenting it. And you get very good feedback, about all sorts of things. And that
They
can
do
help.
something like that, what, the DGA, the colloquium?
Yeah, so I actually think Global Affairs does run a panel. Yeah, it does.
What do you call it? Or run a panel, okay.
Yeah, so just a conference,
Yeah.
and you can present.
I thought it was a colloquium, they call it.
The colloquium is when they have speakers coming.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so that's like.
I thought some of their candidates actually do it also, I thought.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right, because I recently saw, yeah, you're right, they do present. So this is a good idea, if your department has one, you could do it in your department, and then you can branch out, and do it from there. It's a great chance to network. When you go to a conference, you will meet many people that are studying similar things. Or you may be studying something qualitatively and someone else is doing it using quantitative methods, and it's very useful because then you know what's happening out there as far as your topic is concerned, right? You want to know like what's happening, who else is studying it, what are they finding, etc. If you're lucky, you can read some of their papers. Also, writing, so when you have to go to a conference or a presentation, you have to submit an abstract, right? So that's a part of the application process. Writing an abstract is very useful because it forces you to consider and reconsider and rework what your topic is. And this is something you will do up until the very end. I mean, I'm at the very, very end, and sometimes as I'm writing, a chapter, I think to myself, gosh, what is it that I really am trying to say here? It never goes away.
You're chasing
it
the question?
never goes away. Hmm?
You're chasing the question, you're chasing the answer.
Like what is it that what point do I really want to make here? So this is something it's a continuous process, and it becomes more sophisticated, but it's not neat. The ends don't tie together neatly. So writing summaries of your research, like, you can just do it in a Word document, put away your research question or whatever you've formally written, take out a piece of paper or open up a Word document, my study is about, and write. And do that once a month. That will evolve. Right? My study is about. The purpose of this study is ... That's what you're going to write in the chapters too. The purpose of this study is.
That's for the abstract,
Or
right?
the purpose of this chapter is.
The purpose of this
Yeah.
chapter. Exactly. The purpose of this section. Exactly. Yeah. And in the literature review, you have different bodies of the, different sections. The purpose of this part of the literature review is. And so just, The purpose of my study is. And do that several times and see what you come up with, see if it remains the same, because as you're going through the process, how you think about that will evolve. Any any questions about conferences and presentations?
Dress accordingly.
Hmm?
Dress accordingly.
Dress accordingly. Yeah. I presented in Peru, and I presented in Spanish, and they gave, they said that they had a translator available, and I thought that that was a good idea, just in case there was, a phrase I didn't know how to translate. I'm like, this is great, I'll have this translator, and he will help me. And many people attended, and he walked out there with me, and we were at the front of the room. He became so nervous, he turned white like the wall, and he started cold sweating, and was completely useless.
Was it
Oh,
the first
man.
time that he went to a conference?
They just gave them to me. They said, he can speak English and
That was a
Spanish.
sabotage.
And he's a translator if you need him. I thought it was a good idea, but he was so nervous, so he was very afraid of public speaking. Mhm.
You were in Peru under the auspices of what institution?
I did it for my own field work, Rutgers,
For your own field
for
work.
my own dissertation. Mhm.
Okay, so you received a grant to go down there, or you put up your own money or whatever you did?
Both.
Okay, you
both.
went down there, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And you presented to them, see how they took it?
Yeah,
Was
so
that-
at the end, the university there, because I was, I would meet some academics, and actually the university invited me to present, which was very nice of them.
Okay.
Yeah, they were having a conference anyway, and they invited me to be one of the speakers, the director of the department, which was very nice.
Okay.
Hmm?
What was your dissertation about? I didn't catch it if you did tell.
Yeah, so I actually study World Bank lending for poverty alleviation. So I study poverty and development.
Okay.
Mhm.
So are you talking about the where I've seen some, I've seen in certain cultures where they have, I don't know the name of the banks, but basically they lend smaller monies to women and teach them how to set up a business.
Those micro.
Microbank.
I don't
yeah.
study that.
Oh, okay, you did, okay.
Yeah, I
So-
study the World Bank lending, so it lends at the national level.
Right. Well, I mean, that's like, almost like the IMF, but they lend you with certain stipulations that basically
Mhm.
deprive the country of economic independence to a degree,
Mhm.
and then they have to grow things that, we don't need that. We have to import things we grow. like-
Yeah, so I look at the resource first, so these are things that I sort of look at in my own research.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, so presenting is very useful, for many reasons. And if you're going to present in a place where they speak a different language, either be extremely fluent in it, or if they give you a translator, make sure your translator is not shy, right? Does not have like debilitating shyness. Okay, so managing existential crises, right? So this is kind of talking about, anxiety and just feelings of self-doubt, right? And this happens in all stages of the dissertation process, but it happens for different reasons. When you are doing coursework, you will be under a lot of stress because you have a lot of reading to do. So you're reading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, like 3 books plus some, right? Hundreds of pages, per week. Or you're reading, very, very dense material. So it hurts your brain, because it's not like just reading a story. So it's really academic language, and you're trying to figure out what are these people talking about, right? What is the point of this? I know that's very common in business, because your article, it's shorter. The lengths are shorter. You can have like a 10-page, but it's not easy to read. And so, you're highlighting and you're taking, so this is very anxiety-inducing, because you have to read closely. Later on, you get anxiety about passing the comprehensive exam, then about writing a proposal, then about defending a proposal. So you kind of have this anxiety that stays with you, right? Then defending it. And then even after, you're like, I'm so happy I defended. Will people think that it's important, So maintain a healthy and realistic perspective. A great idea is to have a research plan and a timeline. So make a timeline for yourself. And in that timeline, include things that you've already accomplished. So you open up a Word document or a piece of paper and you write, dissertation timeline. And then if you have already completed 2 years of coursework, write that and put a check mark. So you have the purpose is so that you make small goals so that you feel like you're accomplishing things. And truly, when you look back, you will see that you have accomplished so much. We don't really sit with that, right? Because we're always thinking about the next thing we have to do. It's like, okay, I got through coursework, now the qualifying exam. Okay, I got through that, now the proposal. Okay, so you have to make a list of things that you've actually achieved and reference it. Your timeline can be, you can have a general one, you can have a more specific one, you can start from coursework and then you can go to graduation date, right? So May 2020, graduate. So you can make and fill that in. Your research plan, you have to submit a research plan to the IRB. Your research plan is sort of like the purpose of your research and how you're going to go about it. So that if at some point you lose your way or you feel that you're unsure of what you're doing, you read your research plan. And then your research plan will remind you what you're doing and why it is you're doing it. And they're page long, right? These are not long documents, 1 page each, and it goes a long way. I still reference my research plan and my timeline has changed. Discuss concerns with your dissertation supervisor, right? So it depends on the type of relationship that you have, but if something comes up, if you're stuck, if something comes up pertaining to your dissertation, but also outside of it, talk to your supervisor, right? And maybe they can offer you some support. As I said earlier, become friendly with other PhD students. So people that are at your stage and also more advanced. They have a lot of insight. And this happens, during the writing stage, but if you become very stressed out, or you get writer's block, if circumstances permit, take a small separation from your work and then come back to it. Some people may take a weekend, right? 2 days. Don't look at your work at all. Don't look at any part of it. Don't look at your bibliography. Don't read anything. Just don't look at it.
We do that during the course of the regular semester.
Hmm?
We do that during the course of the regular semester.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. You have to.
Even when work is due the following day.
Oh. Oh man, that's not the time to do it.
No, not literally that long though, but it's like I just needed this.
Yeah, separate.
Yeah, for real.
Separate from it and then come back to it. Some people, if they have the opportunity, take like a month off, right? Or they take 2 weeks off. And as you get deeper into it, 2 days may not cut it. You'll need to really take a break from it. Mm-hmm.
I like that suggestion a lot, but I think what sometimes happens, I don't know if you have any suggestions about this,
Mm-hmm.
is when you do step away, getting back to it.
Is tough.
It's very tough sometimes.
Mm.
Because it's like a vacation,
Yeah.
right? Anytime you come back from a vacation, no matter what you're doing in life,
Yeah.
the back to the normalcy of the routine is, it's just tough. I don't know if you have any suggestions
Right.
about
So what I found useful is that when you come back from the separation, don't come back and write. Read what you've already written. And that helps enormously. So don't come back with the mindset of, I need to produce, because that's what causes you the stress in the first place, right?
Mhm.
So come back from the separation and read a journal art or read something you've already written, and then that will make you feel like, oh, okay, I've done this, I know what I'm doing, I'm comfortable, I feel confident, and then you can go forward with writing. So you gotta ease back into it. It makes you feel good, like, when you come back from a separation and you read, like, even a paragraph that you wrote 2 months ago, like, let's say you take a 2-month break, and you come back and you read a paragraph, you'll be happy. You'll be like, wow, I wrote that paragraph. You know, that topic is interesting, and it will motivate you to go back into it.
Either you'll be happy or you won't be.
Yeah, that's true. And then you'll have motivation to fix it, but that's true. So yeah, don't come back, you know, with this mindset like, okay, I need to write. I've been away for a month, I need to write, because you'll get stuck. It will be very hard. Right, so you know, regroup, de-stress, and then return to it with a fresh perspective. Also, I think it's, you know, and this depends on how you're writing your dissertation, but you can write different parts. So I did that. I didn't write chapter 1 and then chapter 2 and then chapter 3. Some days I would work on my methodology, some days I would work on my literature review, some days I would transcribe. So I kind of jumped around, and shifting mental gears helped me.
How did you tie in everything? Because, for example, there are some classes that require us to work in a group, as a group, and then they require all of us to participate in a group paper.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll delegate, say, you write that section, the finances, you write that section, you write that section, you write that section.
Yeah.
And then to make a composite of that it seems like it's one writing instead of
Yeah.
a hodgepodge put together. So what you were doing now, I mean, it's all interconnected, the 1 to 2, the 3.
Mhm.
So how did you, I mean, there's tying words and stuff like that, but how did you make it all seem like in one seamless?
Right. Well, when you're doing your chapters, at the beginning of each chapter, you can, like, you're gonna sort of briefly summarize what will be in the chapter and how it relates to what you wrote previously and how it's tied. So you actually explain how it's all connected.
So there's a bridge, you're saying, at the start of each chapter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Or
also-
the ending, well, at the ending of the first chapter, to get into
Right.
the second.
Right.
Okay.
And so you say, like, you know, you know, the purpose of this chapter is this is how the chapter is laid out.
Okay.
You know, and then this is how it, like, ties to the research questions.
Okay.
So it all comes together. And then you know, you'll do, like, a final edit, but that comes at the very end, where you can work on, like, some transition paragraphs and things like that.
Okay.
But I you know, some days I would work on, you know, a part of my literature review. Like, I do a historical overview, so some days I would write about that. Other days I would then switch to writing about the interview process, because there are many subsections. Each chapter will have subsections. So, you know, I'll, like, okay, today I'm gonna work on this section. And then the next day I work on another section.
Okay.
Yeah, but if that doesn't work for you, don't do it, right? If that gets you too confused, you have to figure out what works for you. It's just that when like, the notion of being stuck in one chapter gives me anxiety. I like this idea of, like, having the ability to move between chapters. Because what if I am bored or I'm not particularly productive in my literature review? I don't want to be stuck there. I want to move on to another place where I can be productive. So that's the strategy I took. Any questions about that, or issues of self-doubt or anxiety?
That's a given. You're gonna get the shakes sometimes, somewhere. You know, like, oh my God, I'm about to do what?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What, you said 30 pages and how many what?
Yeah.
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 That's part of, that's like, you know, what do you call that, standard operational procedure?
Mhm.
That comes along with the church, so I
Yeah.
expect that.
Yeah, that's true. It's a part of the process.